Today on Cult Pop, actor Michael Rooker. You know him from The Walking Dead, and director Gary Jones. It's going to be an incredible show, so stay tuned. All right, I'm really excited to be here with Michael Rooker. It's made my day. We're able to track him down. Busiest guy here at the convention. He's got lines up and down the hallways, people excited, media from all over coming to talk to him. Everybody's fired up. Michael, you're here at Motor City Nightmares, and you have just had the fans going nuts. Tell me a little bit about your experience here today.
I've been half asleep the whole time.
Have you?
Yeah, the fans keep waking me up. I don't understand these people. Why do they keep doing that? I don't know.
Ever since you've had an incredible career, 25 years, people know you over 25 years now. Amazing filmography.
Stop telling my age, man.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, one of my all-time favorites. Cliffhanger. I can go on and on about the movies. Now you go into The Walking Dead and you just capture people's imagination with Merle. And everybody who I talked to when I was saying I'm trying to get an interview today, oh my God, you got to interview Merle. Oh my God, you got to interview Merle. You've captured the imagination of America. Everybody wants to talk to you. I see you going around the country. Tell me a little bit about the interaction with these fans. And in seriousness, does it make your day to see how excited some of these people are to interact with you?
You know what's really cool is when you do a role and people really appreciate what you do. And not only do they appreciate the initial impressions of what you do, that they discover as the role arcs that it's a way more complicated than they eventually thought or essentially thought in the beginning. So it's kind of cool when people get it, you know, and the fans are getting it. You know, it's Merle is quite a complicated character, and it's fun to see people appreciate what I do, and it's always cool when, you know, the fan base has grown from a certain number to like now 5-10 times larger, and the fan base is from small kids to, you know,
absolutely
adult individuals.
You can't, everybody watches The Walking Dead, and I find it interesting also, as an actor for all these years, you've worked with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. You probably don't have an opportunity, unless you're working on a film again, to interact with those folks again. But because of this role, you're having an opportunity to, there's Walking Dead reunions at certain conventions and stuff. Is that kind of neat for you to be able to get together with some of these actors you've shared some really hard scenes with, some you know, deep and brutal scenes? Is it kind of cool to be able to get back together with some of these folks?
And without killing them, yeah?
Yes, without killing them, interacting to social.
It's always fun to do that. No, we have been friends from day one, and new people come on the show and they leave, and you know, and usually they're dead when they leave. So we're all cool, and when we get a chance to meet at some of these Comic-Cons and things like that, we all have a good time.
Michael, I know you're short on time today, so I'm not going to keep you long. There's two things. I want you to be able to promote your website and let people know about how they can learn more about you, get different merchandise and things like that. Tell the folks about your website.
Well, my website's Michael Rooker Online. You can go on and check it out. I'm on Twitter, Michael_Rooker, and there's several Facebook pages, and there's also several fan groups that have their own websites and pages. You know, there's the Dixon Vixens, the Rookerholics, what else? Name a few.
There's all kinds of Facebook. You have about 35 different pages.
There's all sorts of there's all sorts of groups, and Dixon Dolls, and there's some are several hundred and several thousand members deep, and some are only 40 people. You know, so it's kind of cool to you know, hook up with the fans and have them really dig you and dig your work, and start these little clubs and these little Facebook pages and groups. It's kind of funky and cool.
Well, as always, we'll link you up at the website. I've got one final question. I remember the first time I saw you in the movie Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Oh yeah.
And I know it's going way back, but I remember seeing it, I said, my God, this guy's got some chops. This is unbelievable, this role. It was gritty. Do you have any feelings 20-some years later about a role that really kind of, you were around, but that really kind of put you on the map and people really started to talk about you? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, Henry was my first real film that had any sort of character through line or any sort of real arc. You know, I'd done mostly theater before that. Every now and then I'd do like a little day or two-day player role, you know, things like that. But Henry was the number one. That's the one I did early on. That's the one I did because, well, I just wanted to kind of test myself as an actor to see if I was, you know, if I could work in this medium, to see if I could film out of sequence. And I ended up discovering that, you know, I actually was yeah, pretty good at filming out of sequence, you know, and I dug it. You know, I liked concentrating on just that particular moment in the script and not worrying about really any of the other things. You know, like in a play, you're constantly, everything's in sequence, and you play it out to the end of the play. And when you do the film, man, it was a little different, and it was my first one, really, and so I was, yeah.
There was
reality, I was scared to death.
I bring it up. There was a presentation of it locally, a 20-some-year remembrance here about 6 months ago, and it was
really?
super well
Yeah.
attended. And I just thought, wow, how much I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But Michael, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a real thrill for me. I wish you continued success, and I thank you again for being on
Well,
Cult Pop
thanks
today.
for having me here, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, pop culture, culture pop.
Cult
whatever.
Pop.
Cult pop.
Thanks.
We just cut a big deal. Right on. Thank you, brother.
With me now is Gary Jones. He directed one of my favorite movies, Spiders. It's a great cult classic. I recommend you track it down. He's got a new movie out he's going to talk about today. So let's talk a little bit with Gary Jones. Hi, Gary. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Well, thanks for inviting me here. It's great meeting you, and this will be a lot of fun. What was interesting with Spiders was a movie that I was coming off of a TV series called Xena Warrior Princess, which I was working on in New Zealand, and just got back from that, and so I was looking for another film project, and I met with this company, and they were starting to do creature features, and I had done Mosquito, and I had sent them over Mosquito and some of my other stuff, and they called me in, and I went in for a meeting, and they handed me a script called Spiders, and they offered me the film to do, and said, go read the script. So I took, rushed out of there, read the script and everything. It was just massive script, and it was like 3 stories. I mean, there was enough material for 3 movies, and we had the budget was a certain set budget, and I read it and went, it's 3 movies. And so I went back in and talked with the producers and everything and said, look, I think, there's a lot of good stuff in here, but it seems like it's 3 movies. They put me in touch with the writer, and so Stephen Brooks, who wrote the script, I met with him, and I remember kind of apprehensive. I didn't know how he was going to take it, because I wasn't sure where the material was coming from. And I mentioned to him, I really liked a lot of stuff, but it was kind of big and everything, and he kind of smiled. And quickly we started talking about it, and basically the studio had given him all these ideas that they wanted in the movie based on pre-sales to Japan and different countries, because they did a lot of foreign sales. So he just put it all into this one big draft, which was the first draft. So I realized later on what it was is they were giving me the draft to see what I would think. And I think,
to see how you'd hash it out.
Yeah, and I think part of it was also a test to see where I'd come and say, yeah, no problem. And then they'd go, we'll call you later, But I think they gave it to me figuring I'll meet with the writer, Steve, and we could work out and see what kind of movie we could pull out of it. So met with the executives again with the writer and said, look, I mean, it's great, but it's just, it's huge. I don't think we can do it all, and there's 3 movies here. And I said, can we pare it down? And they said, sure. I said, well, what do we need to keep? And they said, well, we did a pre-sale to Japan for the movie, and in the pre-sale, the Japanese always said, spider eat car. I said, what, spider eat car? And he said, so they had, they sold it with a poster with a spider eating a car.
So you need a giant spider.
So I had to have a spider eat the car. So that was a prerequisite. And the other one was they wanted a space opening with NASA footage and stuff, because we could get, real NASA footage. They wanted to incorporate that, and there was some territories that really liked the space opening. So those were kind of like the 2 elements. Other than that, the spider had to be gigantic, and we would destroy it at the end with helicopters or whatever, So that was it. So I went into the room. We spent about 4 weeks. Me and Steve sat in a little office. They set us up at a really cool little movie studio in LA, an old movie studio that director Robert Aldrich used to use, which is one of my favorite directors. So I got to work in this bungalow of this studio that he owned, and I thought this is the coolest thing. So we went in there, we took this script, and we basically took it all apart, and Steve and I, we pulled out everything we liked that we thought we could use and reconstructed the story. And it was great because for the first time I could just throw ideas out there, and Steve would just blast them away, and we would go back and forth with all these, how about this, how about that? And we had a great shorthand I would come up with an idea or something, and Steve would put his finger up for me to stop talking. And I'd shut up, and he would type for 10 minutes. And then he would add everything he was thinking of, and we'd look at it. Great.
Is that
so
how
it
you
really
do a
worked.
lot of your writing? Because I know you write a lot. You do a lot of writing and directing. Is that a useful way for you to write?
Well, on that one it was. I mean, since I didn't create the material, and I was brought in as a director, and I was just there to help massage it, that worked. I normally don't really work that way, but it worked on this one. And we basically retained the three things I always felt what the movie needed was, because there was millions of spiders everywhere, which I said that that'll get redundant. So I said, why don't we do the small one, and then after that one dies, then it goes to the 2-foot one, and then you think that's dead, then it's the 8-foot. So we always had somewhere to go. And I said, then we keep the finale, the 50-foot one, for the end, and that will eat the car and get destroyed. And that's kind of what we did with it. We ran with it, and I think that really, it was their most successful creature feature. They did Shark Attack and Octopus, and just tons of them. But that one, they all did well, but that one did really well for them. So I thought. Me and Steve kind of nailed it. We really meshed on that, and it was a really good back and forth. Normally when I'm working on a project, either I'll come up with the initial idea, and I'll do a rough draft where I just sit down with a cigar and a martini or whatever, and I just write like crazy, and then I type it up. But what I like to do is like come up with an idea for a project or a movie. I start working and writing it out in longhand, and then when I get to a certain point, which I always do, I go, all right, now how do I bring somebody in to get me out of this mess? And I rather collaborate. I could sit in a room by myself and come up with all these ideas and stuff, but there's like a point of when I got to bring other people to the clubhouse. Because to me, about making movies is about getting a group of friends together. And we have a great time and making this project. So as soon as I can bring somebody else in or hoodwink them in and corral them in, I do. But in particular on Axe Giant, The Wrath of Paul Bunyan, that was a little different.
Before we get into Axe
Okay.
Giant, one question about spiders and mosquitoes. What kind of shooting schedule do you have for that? Is it you got to be done in 2 weeks, a month? What kind of schedule?
Well, on Mosquito, which was my first movie, which is an idea that I came up with and worked out a first draft with a writer friend of mine, Steve Hodge. Then ultimately with another friend of mine, Tom Chaney, who's a filmmaker, came in and did the final draft of the script together. That one was just an idea where I brought several other writers and we all kind of coerced pushed it all together. That project, being an independent film, was shot in about 24 days. And that was strictly based on the economics of, we raised a certain amount of money. We didn't have the entire budget together when we were doing Mosquito. We basically had like 30 or 40 grand. It was not very much. And this was back in 1993. So we had enough money to go so far in the script. So we shot to a certain point in the script, and then we knew, now I'm going to be shut down until I raise more money. Well, we planned the last scene, which was going to be the big massacre in the campground, where we had everybody in dead makeup laying all over the ground as if they'd been attacked. And it was a scene in the movie that I always wanted to shoot, but we couldn't afford to show that because we didn't have the money. So I elected to show the aftermath as a prelude to what's coming, so the audience would think, oh shit, it's really, the stuff's really going to happen. If that's what, they can kill all these people. So one of the things we did is we invited, we put out a cattle call and got all these extras in for it. But we also had some of our investors and friends come in. And so the last day was this huge, giant day. Everybody in makeup laying on the ground, they had a great time. Well, one of the investors came up to me afterward and said, this is great. When are you shooting next? And I said, well, we're done until we raise more money. He said, what do you mean? I go, well, we need to raise more money. He goes, well, how much you need? Well, maybe another 40 or 60 grand and we can keep going. Okay, let me work on it. And then like a week later, so it actually worked to our advantage.
People, yeah, if you've got
them
this,
interested.
we got to shoot more, sure.
So we had this one, this one of our investors, really great guy, him and his, he just had a great time and came out and said he wanted to keep the ball rolling. So I always found that what was good about independent filmmaking is that, getting the people on board, and we're having a great time making it. And I sort of have a rule. If we have fun making it, the audience will have fun watching it. And I kind of live by that because I've been on film shoots and sets as an effects man working for other people. And most of those experiences have been good, but there's been some really bad ones. And I tried to figure out what was bad about them. And ultimately what it came down was the personalities. And I thought, wow, the director or whoever it is, they're making this, everyone's pulling their weight and all this crazy like status thing, and firing this guy, just making it miserable. I thought, why would you do that, We're so lucky we get to go and play and create this movie.
Do what you want to do, make film.
Why not be a good time? So I came up with the rules, like if we have fun making it, they'll have fun watching it. And if we're not having fun making it, a lot of times independent movies, don't go anywhere, or it's not like you make millions of dollars
Right.
off of them. They end up either on a DVD if you're lucky, or maybe nowhere. So that was kind of a rule. But anyways, getting back to it, Mosquito was about 24 days. Spiders was 25 or 26 days. And again, that was more of a mini major studio picture, and that was predicated to them.
Let's segue then into Axe Giant. How long did that take to shoot?
Well, ultimately Axe Giant was about 24 to 25 days. But when we started, we shot initially 8 days. Okay. Oddly enough, Axe Giant, we started in like 2007, 2008. We had the script and everything, and the original idea was actually, I should say, Jeff Miller, my writing partner on this, producing partner, we sat in a coffee shop trying to pitch what's our next movie going to be. And he pitched Paul Bunyan as a giant with an axe, and I thought that'd be great. No one's done that. So that was kind of the prelude. That's how it started. But we raised a little bit of money. We only had enough money to shoot like 8 days. So we shot an initial 8 days with the money we had, with no Paul Bunyan and no monster in it. And we did that shoot in LA with the kids in the LA cast. And then as we raised more money, then 4 or 5 months later, we went into Ohio and we shot a bunch of sequences there, and then we did a little bit in Michigan. So it's over 3 states, but collectively, if you put all the days together, about 25 days, 26. We did about 5 or 6 days of green screen shooting with our monster on the green screen stage in his giant suit.
Tell me a little bit, give the folks at home a little backstory about the movie, what it is, what propels the movie story.
Initially, the story's about Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox, but mainly Paul Bunyan. And it's the story, we have always heard the legends or know of the tall tale of Paul Bunyan, this benevolent character who drags his axe and created the Grand Canyon, and his footsteps created the Great Lakes and all that. So that's what we know of it. And we thought, well, what happens if, over time when you tell a story, how it changes? We don't know what happened 20 years ago, and when the story's told today, it's a different story. So we thought, well, how do you make Paul Bunyan a bad guy and killing people? And it's like, well, you can't just make him a bad guy, because the best bad guys are good guys that have been turned bad.
Right.
So we thought, all right, well, how do we do that? So we said, well, what we'll do is we'll reveal Paul Bunyan today. He's still living, and he has a rare disease which makes him grow twice as tall as a normal man, and he'll live 3 times as long and grow twice as tall. And so we thought, well, that'll create the fact that he's still out there in the mountains like Bigfoot, hiding from us. And then we created this whole thing of, why is he killing the people now? And then we thought, well, we'll get to a point in the movie when the Irving the Explainer, the crazy old man, tells you the backstory, which you have in a lot of these movies. You've seen a lot. And one of the thoughts we had was, when he tells the story, typically that guy tells you the campfire story.
Right.
We thought, well, why not show what he's telling you? We can go back and show the whole backstory, how Paul Bunyan became the bad guy that he is today, but we never knew it. So that was kind of how we came. The twist was, how did we turn him bad, So he was really a good guy, and something happened to him that made him do these things. And over time, the town folks created a different stories to keep prosperity going. And that's the story we know today. So that was the whole spin we put on it, to bring Paul Bunyan in today and also make him kill these people. And again, there's a few devices in the film that you'll see when you see it that kind of, I don't want to give it all away, but
right.
There's some good little bits.
We'll pause there for a second, because you've been nice enough to share a trailer with us and some footage for fans of Cult Pop to see. So let's take a look right now of the trailer.
You all have had the good fortune to be a part of the state's first offender program. All aboard Sergeant Hope's Happy Short Bus.
This dude's crazy. I can't do this all week. You want to be worked to death? I'm out of here. Check it out. What is it? I'm taking a souvenir.
found yourself.
Paul Bunyan. You're telling us that's Paul Bunyan out there.
We found this.
This is bad. You desecrated the resting place of Bunyan's only friend. Wait! Wait! Wait!
Gary, I know the folks at home love the trailer. Thanks a lot for sharing that with us. I know later on you're going to tell us about your website and share some other special information just for the cult pop fans to check out when they go visit your website, if they go from our website and check yours out. So we really appreciate you sharing that. But you've got a DVD to announce now with this coming out in June. Is that correct?
That's correct. We've got distribution for the movie. We've actually got foreign distribution, DVD distribution, and we're going to do a limited theatrical release, but the DVD will be coming out on June 18th. That's our street date. So we're pretty excited that it's right around the corner. Took a lot of years to put the movie together, and it's great now that we're just getting everything together, and it's, there's an end game now. We're going to actually see it out there, which is pretty cool.
Gary, well, we'll do our best to help promote it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
I already took your order for the 1,000 copies.
That's right.
I'll collect the check before we leave.
Okay, excellent. Your career has taken you all over the world, quite literally all over the world. And I think it's very interesting, and I like to ask people involved in genre, directing, acting, any of this type of stuff. When you have an opportunity to come to a convention like this, most actors, directors and stuff don't really get a chance to see their fans too much or interact the way you do when you come to a convention like this. Tell me a little bit about the experiences you have and may have had this past weekend with fans that come up, really enjoy your work, and kind of the interaction with fans here at a convention like this.
What's great is the thing for me with the movies, besides always wanting to be a filmmaker, was exactly what you said about traveling the world. I mean, I've gone places I would have never even booked a flight for. I mean, I did a movie in India and Bulgaria and Romania, Transylvania, way up in the mountains, and Vlad the Impaler country, and New Zealand for a year and a half on the TV series. So that's been great, and I always thought, wow, what a great adventure, and I always made those adventures. But when I go to like the conventions, and if I went to like AFM or any of the film markets, what's interesting is people come up to me. One guy came up to me at one place, and a French guy from France, and he said he had seen my movie Spiders. He recognized me from the movie, and I'm like, but I didn't do a cameo in that movie. He goes, no, the special features. I saw you directing in the special features. I recognized you. I'm like, oh, okay. So it was really interesting. It's like, oh, somebody watches those, and kind of, from France, and he saw it, and he saw me at a convention across the room, and kind of came up. But at like Motor City Nightmares and some of these other ones I've been to, it's interesting that people will come up that had seen Mosquito back when it first came out, and then they'll say, dude, I watched that movie like 1,000 times on TV. It's the greatest movie. And they had another guy that come up and say, we used to do the beer drinking party at college to your movie, and I think they're still doing it every year over there. I'm like, really? How come they didn't invite me?
Yeah.
But what's really cool is that you spend a lot of time making these movies. I mean, it's something I always wanted to do, and it was never, the whole idea was just making the movie. I never was thinking of the economics or money or awards or any of that. And what's interesting is I just made the movies I kind of wanted to see. Growing up, I loved movies, all the classics and stuff, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to do that, be that guy behind there and get to, be the guy behind the curtain. And as a fan, because I'm a big movie fan, I remember what it was like when I first met some directors that I admired, and I was just like in awe. And then I met them, I went, wow, they're just like regular guys, who are just doing these things that they love doing. And it really struck me as like that was really kind of a universal thing, is that like we put people on pedestals, what do you want, entertainers, politicians, it doesn't matter, but that's our perception of them is different. I mean, they see themselves somewhat differently, but it's interesting when I meet fans and they just tell me like, as a family, my dad came home and we all sat around and watched Mosquito. I'm going, wow, that's exactly what I did when I was like 10 years old, 9 years old. I'd get
Fright features were on, and you see it.
All the horror movies, and I would get the TV guide. I'd memorize the TV guide, and over dinner, my dad'd say, "What's on Thursday night at 9 o'clock?" Oh, Bridge on the River Kwai. Okay, what's on Friday? So I'd name the movies, and as a family, we'd sit and watch these movies. And this guy said it to me, and it's like, wow, he sat there with his family. And I'm thinking, wow, all the bad things that happen with, you know, the movie not making money or, you know, distribution or whatever, you know. It was great making the movie, but when your movie's done a lot of times, you know, getting it out there and all that. And I thought, wow, somebody actually sat down and did what I did when I was a kid. It's
pretty rewarding.
With their family. And I thought, that makes it worthwhile. That's like, well, there's a reason to keep doing it. Somebody's enjoying it. And I always remember as a kid when my parents took me to the drive-in movie theater, which we'd go to like almost every other weekend in the summertime, and I saw Planet of the Apes as a kid, you know, little kid in the back seat, Planet of the Apes. And then they used to have a Disney movie and then an R-rated movie, and they always tell us to go to sleep for the R-rated movie. And I stayed awake and watched Easy Rider and Bonnie and Clyde, you know, through the headrest, and they just blew me away. And like, so these events of these movies, and I thought, wow, the power those had. And so now when someone comes up to me at a convention or whatever and says, I enjoyed your movie, or I love this or love that, it's like, wow, you know what? It's almost like worthwhile just to hear that and go, well, there is a fan.
That's what I think is really neat about these conventions, the experiences, because when I'm trying to wrangle you up for an interview or something and I see people having conversations and their faces light up and stuff, I really think that's just fantastic. That's why I do when somebody recognizes me from the show, that's why I'm involved in it. When somebody recognizes you from the film, I think it's really neat. But Gary,
you share that experience. You guys, it's that common experience that you realize it is universal.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if we're making it and they're watching it. You're all sharing it, and it's like, and the time frame doesn't matter either.
No.
And you go, wow, that's kind of cool. We're actually doing something worthwhile, you know.
Right.
Well, and I used to make cars on the assembly line in Detroit.
And now you're making films.
And we're making films.
We're running short on time. I wanted you to have the opportunity to be able to tell folks about the website so they can get more information on the film, how to order the DVD, and things like that. So why don't you tell the fans?
So our website is axegiantmovie.com. And you can go to that site. We're going to have a lot of information, and pretty soon we're going to have some special announcements about some new releases and possible TV and different things. We're also going to have information up there as screenings. There'll be screenings in many different states, weekend screenings, midnight screenings and such across the country. And the DVD is going to be, the street date is going to be June 18th. And you can be able to get it on our website, and we're going to do signed copies and send those out. And it's going to be everywhere else too. Check the stores, all your local stores and video stores. And our distributor, Virgil Films, will be putting that out everywhere too. So it's going to be far and wide. And if you can't find it, you can go to our site, axegiantmovie.com, and we'll be happy to send you a copy. We'll sign it and send it off to you, and you can hold on to it for 20 years, and you could get more money for it on eBay.
That's right. It could be a collectible. Well, I wish you continued success, Gary. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed this interview.
Cool.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing the movie. So thanks.
Thank
a lot.
you.
Appreciate it.
It was great being here.
Thank you. Thanks for watching Cult Pop. We were at the 2013 Motor City Nightmares. Hope to see you next time.
Thank you.